Good morning and welcome to the July 14th edition of the Gold Goats and Guns Market Report. My name's Tom Luongo. Got a lot to talk about. So happy Bastille Day, everyone. I'm sure that, I don't know if you saw the news, but French President Emmanuel Macron was not having a happy Bastille Day. The Gilets jaunes were out there heckling him and telling him to step down. I think that's pretty funny. But, yeah, it's Bastille Day. I know I had a cat that was born on Bastille Day. I'm just trying to think of who it was, which one it was, but I can't remember now. All right, well, regardless, let's get to the report. Let's get out of here. But before we do, let's say hello to all the new patrons. You guys you're great. This is the highest level of patronage that we've seen so far. I say it seems like I say this every market report now, but it's been a banner couple of weeks, and July has been quite impressive. So I am very, very pleased about that, and hope you guys enjoy what I have to say. As always, if you're new, this is as much your service as it is mine, so don't forget that if there's a stock or a crypto or something that you want me to cover, or even just a topic you'd like me to cover, specific to, send me a message either on Patreon or on Twitter or an email or whatever, and I'll be more than happy to accommodate. It's always a great thing to be focused on and do something that's a little different than what I would normally do here. So happy to do so. All right, let's get on with it. So let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein, because we need to, because this is really, the more I dig into this, the more I'm convinced that this is, excuse me, probably the biggest story of the year. And if it's as big as I think it is, which I do believe it is, my spidey sense tells me that this guy is as dirty gets, and is as connected gets. And that means every erg of energy in Washington right now is focused on how to deal with this and to minimize the damage from it. And I'm telling you, this is what's going through everybody's mind right now, because everybody's implicated and everybody knows it, because this has been the worst open secret for the last 15 years or 20 years. Okay, this is not new. It's not like these people don't know about it. And all they care about now is how they can minimize the damage to themselves. That means there's going to be a lot of people cutting bait. There's going to be a lot of people leaking information. There's going to be a lot of people frustrated or empowered and happy that they can actually finally speak out about this stuff. Remember that the deep state isn't all pervasive, and most of what we're dealing with are people who've been placed at the top via networks of people like Jeffrey Epstein. And he's not the only one. He's just one of many who are there to ensure that the people at the top of the CIA, the State Department, the federal, the FBI, and the rest of them, and Congress and everywhere else, the National Security Council, the board members of various important corporations and whatnot, they're all there with strings attached to them. And those strings were attached to them by people like Jeffrey Epstein and the people who he works for or works with. Let's not just say that he's an underling here, because he's not at a certain level. And this thing spans multiple governments. It spans multiple continents. It's got ties to Israel. It's got ties to the UK. It's got ties to Ukraine. It's got ties to France. It's got ties to us. It's got ties probably to, I'm sure that so much of this has been cleared in offshore banks in the Caymans and the British Isles and the British Protectorates and all this. It's just, the whole thing is this massive web, but of a very small number of people at the top, because you can't manage something like this and have it be very large, because at the end of the day, it becomes too big. But at the same time, once it becomes all pervasive, the managerial aspect of it becomes too big to keep it quiet. And the only reason it stays quiet is because no one is willing to go against it, because everybody thinks it's all powerful. It's that thing that, at the end of the day, I haven't talked about this recently, but I probably should do a better job of this. It's one of those themes that I talk about for weeks on end, because it's in the front of my brain, and then I use it everywhere. It's a phrase or a metaphor or whatever, and then it goes away because I've got so many of these irons and fires that over time they kind of get lost, and you invent new ones, but you forget the old ones, which still have tremendous power. And one of those is that the universe hates bigness. Right? Well, the second law of thermodynamics tells you very, very, very explicitly that you can't win, right? Energetically, and that entropy will ultimately take down the universe. Well, it's the same thing with when you apply it metaphorically to human organizations or anything. Trees get too big, their limbs get so heavy that they fall off, and the tree rots from within, right? I live in North Florida, and there are these water oaks that are literally house killers. And they grow so big so fast, and they rot out from within, and their big old limbs drop on people's houses or on power lines or whatever. And the only thing this stuff's good for is firewood. You can't even make furniture out of it because of the way it's designed. It's just terrible. But it's a metaphor for the way operations like Epstein's, that it didn't start with him. It started earlier than that. It was very small. It was blackmail a guy here, compromise a guy there, get a judge to look the other way there, yada 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 yada, and then it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And eventually, once the organization gets so big and has so many different fiefdoms, has so many different angles to it, and those fiefdoms are fighting amongst themselves, and all of this stuff. At the end of the day, now, it's all this. It's now just a big mess. But it's a big mess that we, on the outside of all of it, have either willingly turned a blind eye to, or didn't understand. And only when we're primed to see the man behind the curtain, or see the world for how it is, do we go, oh, that's what it is. And that's disgusting. And the bigness of this organization eventually is its own undoing, because it eventually will rot from within. You catch one guy. The cost to that guy is so big that he's going to rat out 4 or 5 others, and that leads you to 2 other people, and that leads you to these guys and that guy, and all of a sudden, and the only thing holding it back are the people at the top, like the little Dutch boy with his fingers in the dam, and the leaks are coming faster than he has fingers. This is the way the Federal Reserve and all the central banks are going to fail. This is the way the corruption rackets within our governments are going to fail. This is the way all this stuff's going to fail, because it's the end of the day. Bigness is a liability, because it then starts relying on single points of failure. It starts relying that anybody becomes a potential single point of failure. And then once you pluck one guy, and I'm going to bring up the name that everybody's not talking about, and that's Harvey Weinstein. Who has he given up? I asked this question the other day in my blog post. What names did Weinstein give up in order to, get himself a better deal? Okay, because this guy's staring at, God knows how many hundreds of years in jail, right? And all of this. What does he give up? Because it's not like Harvey Weinstein is a paragon of loyalty and virtue, and he's going to go down. He's going to take one for the team all the way down. No, of course not. He's going to be turned into his lawyers and his people. Say, come on, get me out of this. And he's going to cut a deal, just like everybody else. So when you watch this stuff play out, you have to realize that that's the process that's happening right now. The ring fencing around this is all, and the media has been framing all of this to focus just on the pervy angle, and then guilt by association with Acosta and Trump and all this stuff. That's all they're doing to try and ring fence this and keep people focused on the disgusting aspects of it, the truly vile aspects of it, and miss everything else. But the problem here is that this is so disgusting. People are going to ask basic freaking questions like, why did this guy get let off in 2009 with nothing? Come on. Even Alex Acosta isn't that corrupt. What's going on here? Come on. It's not just that story. And, when we only focus on that aspect of the story, we tend to stop asking the right questions like, why is this even happening? No one else is asking that question. Why is this even happening? Because if you don't ask that question, then you don't have answers. And I know I covered this on my live stream on Friday, and I covered it, but it's so important to remind yourself, why is this happening? And what are the effects of the markets going to be? Again, all this ties right back into a loss of confidence in all the institutions. At a time when the Fed is under more pressure than it's ever been under, when the ECB is under tremendous pressure, when all of the major central banks are under tremendous pressure, when China's shadow banking system is collapsing, when global trade is collapsing, and when all of this stuff is going on, and we have competing factions within the White House who are trying to get us into a world war to potentially distract us from this. At some point, everybody's going to just going to pull back and go, that's enough. That's enough. And if you look at the way the markets are trading, as I've been saying for weeks, if you look at the way the markets are trading, they know something big is coming. And the amount and type of intervention that's happening in certain markets is insane. And they can only intervene in so many markets at once. There is literally only so much money to go around. You deploy some stuff over here in the oil market to get that under control, and then gold breaks out. And then it's like playing whack-a-mole. And then you go over to beat down gold, and Bitcoin breaks out. And then Bitcoin breaks out, and you got to go deal with Italian bond yields. And Italian bond yields break out, and you got to deal with the euro. And it's just bing, 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 bing. And they're all just trying to constantly manage a retreat and chaos. And it's the same thing that's happening with Epstein, with this Epstein thing. Every day, it looks like they think, okay, we've got it ring fenced, and then, oh, no, there's another guy of even higher caliber saying, no, this guy's intelligence. Ann Coulter saying this guy's intelligence, and ignoring the Clinton aspect completely, right? You would think that if Ann Coulter was on the payroll, she would be focusing on the Clinton angle, because that's Rupert Murdoch's job, right? Is to focus on the Clintons. And, CNN's job and MSNBC's job is to focus on the Trump angle. They attack Trump from one side, they attack they minimize the intelligence angle on the other, and there you are, right? So, the Clinton angle on one side, Trump on the other. Ignore the intelligence stuff. We all are sufficiently distracted. We move the Overton window. It's all done. No, that's not what's happening. Ann Coulter's real. She knows what's going on. She walks in these circles, the same circles that Trump walks in. So when Ann says this guy's intelligence, I believe her, and I think it matters. So, all right. Other things we're going to talk about. Let's talk about Turkey, because this is also important. I've talked about this a little bit on my live streams, but not completely. What you have to remember: the United States is incredibly angry with the Turks for buying S-400s, because it's a clear provocation on President Erdogan's part, to signal to NATO and to the U.S. and everybody else that Turkey is carving an independent path, and they want operational control over Cyprus and the Bosporus and Turkey itself. This is about the Bosporus. This is about the Eastern Mediterranean. This is about the ability of the United States to stop Russian oil tankers from resupplying Syria. I saw this morning that ISIS attacked a major pipeline in Syria. Wonder how that happened. Wonder who gave them that support, because I thought ISIS was finished. Thought we kicked the hell out of ISIS. Oops. Yeah. So, pull the other leg, it plays Jingle Bells. And at the edge of this, it's all feels like, I could sound like, crazy alt-right guy or crazy conspiracy theorist, but, at the end of the day, I understand why the people in charge in Israel are doing the things that they're doing right now. I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. You know what I mean? I get the opportunity that they have in front of them. I get what they're playing, what games they're playing, and I get it. I think it's incredibly dangerous and incredibly arrogant, and I wish they would stop it. But as long as Jared Kushner and Ivanka are in the White House, I don't see that it ends. And that's where we are right now. But there's always the potential here for it to blow back on Trump in a bad way, and he could cut bait. And we'll see what happens. If he doesn't cut bait soon, then a lot of this has all been then like going to North Korea and all this stuff doesn't really matter. It doesn't mean anything. And I think Turkey realizes a lot of this as well. The Turkey has been sold out. I told you multiple times that Erdogan is convinced that we put together the coup attempt against him back in 2016. And that was run out of Incirlik, the air base. And that's why he's been purging everybody across Turkish society, from military to journalists to operatives to everybody. I mean, they're all, and it's being reported in the press, of course, that he's an evil, vile dictator. He's not paranoid. He's right. We did this. And Putin saved his life. Turkey's off the reservation. The S-400s are about that. The F-35 is not something that the Turks want anyway, but the Turks are then going to sue us in international court because the Turks are supposed to be making half of the parts for the F-35. That was part of their gibs, that they would get F-35s on the cheap by building some of them. Guess what? They're going to take that away from them? All right, well, we'll see how that plays out. Okay? You know, they want, and they're using the cover of drilling for gas off the coast of Cyprus as a means to protect their ships. They're going to put S-400s on Cyprus. Okay, they're going to put S-400s overlooking the Bosporus. Okay? And, you know, when those things are in place, Turkey can be either forced out of NATO or quit NATO and then join the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. But they're not going to do that tomorrow. They're not going to do it next week. But it's very, very important that you understand that that's where this is heading. Okay. All right. I think that's good enough for now. These have been running a little too long for my taste. 35 minutes, I think, is too much. So I want to try and get back down to 20, 25 minutes and get you out of here quicker. So only 3 charts today, just the basics, and then we're going to move forward. Let's talk about gold. Really impressive move on Thursday and Friday in gold. This gap here was obviously an area that the market needed to test heavily. The gap between about 1380 and 1410 or so. 1405. This whole area needed to be tested. It was a very important area. Remember, the breakout level was 1375. There really wasn't much, and we had to do some testing in 1370, 1360 area as well. So not surprised that this gap up has caused all of these high tails, all of these very volatile peaks. It's obvious that and I'm going to show you the Bitcoin chart. You'll see a similar thing, except with more violence, and that these are your two fundamental safe haven assets that portend a different monetary system. So of course they're going to be fought. Their breakouts are going to be fought here very, very aggressively. And so don't be surprised by this. This is part of the reason why I've just said, look, don't get upset if Bitcoin corrects back to 10,000 or even 8,500 or whatever. Don't worry about that. It was an historic run. And same thing with gold. This was a really big move in gold from 1260 to 1440. This is big, right, in the gold market. A lot of people lost money in the futures market here. A lot of people who were short got killed here. They're trying to reset the market. They're trying to hold it in place because no one wants to hear 1,500, because 1,500 makes for headlines. They have to report gold at $1,500, right? Every $500, every $1,000, they're going to report it. Gold hits $1,500 for the first time in a long time. Gold hits $2,000. These are the headlines that they're worried about, because they don't want to see the normies leaking away. They want the normies in the stock market. They want the normies still buying bonds. They don't want people buying gold. They don't want to listen to guys like me. They don't want you listening to guys like me. And, whatever. Not this. This is not what they want. It's obvious. They don't want to remonetize gold. The Russians want to remonetize gold. I'm sure the Chinese, by the time this is all said and done, are going to want to remonetize gold. They're going to have to. So don't worry here. This Friday's close was actually really quite impressive. I mean, look at this. Look at these 3 bars. A high, hammer down, and then we get this gap fill, and we close here. We close barely positive. As far as I'm concerned, this is a bearish bar. This is the end of your trend. And then after this big huge bar, we get an inside bar that moves higher. So, this is Like, for you Elliott Wave guys here, here's 3 weeks back to back. A, B, C. Okay? And I'm a huge fan. I freaking hate Elliott Wave stuff. This is why I'm almost making fun of it now. But this is what I'm talking about. Like, I like Elliott Wave as post hoc analysis. Oh, yeah, there's A, there's B, there's C, there's D. Okay, there's E. You know, what is... Maybe we could just as easily go from D to A, and then we have to write another rule. Like, at the end of the day, the algorithm's so complicated that it's basically just, we retrace some stuff. I mean, it's just stupid. It's just silly. I'm just not a fan of it. I just don't think it. I think it's good post hoc analysis. I don't think it's good analysis. It's not quantitative. It's not reproducible. You can't work with hard numbers. It doesn't give you odds. It doesn't give you risk to reward ratios. It doesn't give you any of that stuff. It gives you inferences. It's the same thing with drawing lines on charts. I'm just not a huge fan of it. Okay. So this week, this is what we've got. We got 3-to-1 pot odds. We're going higher. Okay. Last week was volatile. The week before that was incredibly volatile. So none of this stuff tells me that we're going to be breaking into new ranges unless there's a discontinuous event that nobody is handicapping. And if nobody's handicapping it, then anybody says, "Oh, I knew that," they're all lying, because these are the numbers. These are what's real. So it may happen, and that would be cool if it does. But if it doesn't happen, well, it doesn't happen. All right. So that's the situation of gold. Continuing to hold above $1,400 week in and week out. We're now 3 weeks above $1,400. That's the big important takeaway. Right. Threatened to close below $1,400 this week, failed to do so. Bitcoin. As I said, these 2 times when Bitcoin had the opportunity to reverse, it avoided it. Now, we opened this week bearish. This was the Sunday night low. This is a hugely bearish. Both of these are not particularly bullish bars. This is a bullish bar, though, right? Relatively speaking. Long tail, bullish, high top, Mohawk, bearish. Sell Mohawks, or, Mohawks are bearish, and long tails and I don't know, squirrel tails are bullish. This is this morning's price action. So we closed at 11.3 last night for the week and immediately violated the low. Notice the pot odds on breaking that low, right? It's just telling you that there's so much going on here. This is so violent. I have a distinct feeling we're going to probably retest this low with the way this closed traded over the last 3 or 4 days. When we were trading up at 13,000 earlier in the week, go back to Wednesday's report, right? Everything looked blue skies, but this collapse here and into this morning, not a good sign. So, this is why I don't trade this stuff. This is why I hate making predictions about this stuff. But it's to let you know, you do your level best to give people the best information in the moment. Right now, Bitcoin looks bearish. I would expect a move back down towards this low, around 9,500 or something like that. 9,500, 9,700. I can't remember what the number is. All right, that's the situation of Bitcoin. So, again, it's going to need to, and even if it bounces back above 11,000, it has done nothing to offset that, right? Other than the fact that this is now kind of a incredibly violent coiling pattern. If we don't violate this low, then you've got high, low, high, low, high, low, right? And you've got this dampening oscillator effect, which people will call a triangle pattern. But just, if that's the case, and at some point, as long as you keep breaking highs and breaking lows, and you're trading in a tighter and tighter band, then what I said originally when we hit this big peak here was that don't be surprised if we trade sideways for a little while, and don't be surprised if it's violent. Bing, bing, bing. All right. The last thing to talk about is the Dow. Now, the Dow has been lagging gold and Bitcoin for the last few weeks because of it being uncommittal about taking out and holding the 27,000 level, right? I mean, it's been moving higher and all this stuff, but these were really non-committal bars. This was the important bar. I think if we go back to the market report from when we traced this bar, and I noted this close versus this high, I said, well, it's a signal. If we got an all-time closing high, it wasn't definitive. We didn't bust through it by 350 points. We busted through it by 40 or 50 points or whatever, but that was enough. because then look at the trade, look at the trading after that. 2 weeks worth of consolidation within the upper half of this bar, and then boom. Humphrey Hawkins' testimony from Jerome Powell sends the markets into, risk on mode. Or is it just further capital flight? Think about it this way. You had massive moves in things like, if you look at the last few weeks, massive moves in things like Italian bonds. Bitcoin's been all over the place. Gold has been pushing into new areas and all this stuff. Not surprised that the Dow didn't move very much until we finally got a confirmation that, one, Powell was ready to cut rates, and that, two, things are bad in Europe and getting worse. The numbers coming out of Germany are terrible. The fact that Angela Merkel can't stand up in public appearances anymore is terrible. Okay, these are the things the markets are beginning to clue in on what's going on in Europe, and it's starting to show and it's absolutely showing now in our equity markets. So you got a mix of people. So this was all people who were like fleeing Europe, and now boom, now the American now all the Momo monkeys are coming in and going, yep, Powell's gonna, all the normies, all the Wall Street normies are going, yep, the Fed's gonna cut rates and it's gonna be good for stocks, buy stocks. Right? Those algorithms are running, right? And they're the ones that waited for Powell to give them the signal. It's fine. This is other types of buying. And so this is why we finally got a breakthrough on 27,000 and then moved immediately up 300 points and closed at the high of the week. And no one wanted to be short the Dow this weekend, right? Not with European bond rates where they are, which they're insanely low yields. And just insanely low yields. So this is what we got. This is where the market is today. I spent a lot of time this morning trying to find a fourth chart, something interesting to talk about. I didn't think oil was all that interesting. I didn't think what's happening in the grain markets. I can tell you the couple things just before we leave. The Brent WTI spread is down to $6.50 or just over $6.50. I think that has more of a function to do with the worry this weekend over Hurricane Barry and the effect it might have on the gas complex in Louisiana and Texas on the Gulf Coast than it does anything else. I think that the world economy is showing us that $66 a barrel oil is still way too high, even though technically speaking, the weekly chart did look a little bullish. I did see some bullishness in this chart, as much as I'm an oil bear at this point. I just don't think they're particularly interesting because, what are you going to do? You're going to go up to $70 and then fail again. I think there's more hope in the oil market than there is conviction. And that's why I'm handicapping a continued move down. And that's why I don't think we should be looking at the Dow Jones breaking to all-time highs and the S&P 500 as anything other than safe haven trades. It's an extension of the safe haven trade. Okay. Same thing in the metals markets. The metals, all the strategic metals like tin and copper and aluminum, they're all in bear markets. And I was looking around at the strategic metals this morning. I saw that nickel is on a tear and lead is on a tear. And I had to go looking individually, but nobody else was. So I didn't see a complete breakout across the metal spectrum saying, okay, maybe we have inflation now. Right? Nope. Copper's still mired in a bear market. Aluminum, tin, they're not interesting. Nickel looks like a speculative bet and maybe some supply and demand things. It doesn't look like anything sustained. It looks like something not secular. They're not. It's particular to the nickel market, so I don't really give it down. And then grains, soybeans, wheat, corn, they're all flirting with long-term breakouts to the upside. But they haven't done so yet. They're kind of still sitting there near the support, they're acting like gold was about a month and a half ago. Yeah, I want to get there. I want to break through, but I can't. But I can. The traders are obviously waiting for definitive planting numbers and definitive harvest projections for this year before they make a decision one way or the other. So watch that in the grain space. If you're interested in playing in that space, then watch for breakouts in soybeans, corn, and wheat above horizontal resistance. And wheat, that's around 535 a bushel, and soybeans is about 950. So currently, where soybeans are trading right now, and there's a possibility of soybeans going say back to like $11 or whatever. Okay, so those are things for you, the guys, to look at for the week as we move into and we roll into this week. A couple of programming notes for you guys to know. We are going on vacation starting next Sunday. So there will be no market report next Sunday because I will be on the road. I'll maybe try and get one done Saturday night before I leave. I'll see what I can do. Maybe I can do that. But I'm going to be on vacation for about 10 days. I will attempt to try and keep up with things as I go along. I'll be bringing my laptop. I don't know. It's going to be hard for me to get everything done I have to get done and take care of my patrons and my other clients and everything else. So just warning you that I may just honestly take some time off because I've been working like a dog. But there's that. So I'll be around on the Slack channel. I'll be around in other ways, in other capacities. But there'll be 4 days, a couple days driving out. We're going to New Mexico for about 10 days. So while we're driving, I'm going to be mostly incognito, and then when we drive back, I'm going to be the same. So there we go. All right. So I'll mention this again. So you guys take care. Be well, and we'll talk on Wednesday. Keep your stick on the eyes.